Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Tech Informist, where we inform you, our listeners, about the technological industry. My name is JJ Hammond. We have another great show for you. Are you ready to be informed? Of course you are. Up first, our guest for the show. He has spent more than 11 years as a copy editor, page designer, and news editor at a daily newspaper in Florida. He then took the reins of the biggest Android-focused website, Android Central, in December of 2009. When he's not playing with phones or smartwatches, he enjoys hot baths and long walks on the beach. And no, that's not false. That is true. Husband, father of two, and he has a 75-pound foxhound, the fantastic Phil Nickinson. Hello, and thank you for being on the show, sir.
What's going on? Thanks for having me.
Thanks. We are... Honestly, I'm nervous as all get out just because, like, you're huge guest. We've been listening to you for a long time, and we're really pumped about having you. However, this show is not complete without my good friend, founder, editor-in-chief of STLTechTalk.com, producer of Codecast by STL Tech Talk, where we teach people how to code, co-creator of STLTechChic.com, our women in tech website, and the Tech Informist show, this show, which you're listening to and or watching now. The uncanny Kevin Harvell. Hello, Kevin.
Hello, JJ. Hello, Phil. Thank you again very much for joining us. It's a great pleasure to have you on.
Oh, absolutely.
And don't forget, everyone, visit thetechinformist.com for all of our past shows, Mary Jo Foley, to name just a couple of cool guests. And visit STLTechTalk.com and Codecast by STL Tech Talk. Those are both awesome sites and shows. And don't forget, everyone, you can interact with the show by sending us feedback to contact@thetechinformist.com. And also, we want to give a special thank you to our last guest, the big Win fan, Kyle Reddick. He did a great job, so go listen to that show as well. Now let's get to the reason why we're all here, and that is to talk with Phil. Phil, first question is, you have been in journalism for some time. How did you get into the journalism field?
It's actually... Let me see if I can come up with a relatively short version that's still kind of funny. I was in a metal band way back when, and I remember we were playing at some charity thing at a park downtown here. I remember looking down and seeing this girl watching us, and remember seeing her on video and all this stuff. I ended up talking to her like a year later. Ended up dating her for a couple of years, and I came back from a year away in college, and I needed a job, and her brother worked at the newspaper here, and I basically just needed a job. So I didn't know anything about journalism or newspapering or anything. I had read the newspaper growing up a little bit and knew some of the names in it. Next thing I know, I'm learning how to make it, and it started as a 2-night-a-week part-time job putting together sports scores, and 11 years later, I was in charge of the desk that designs it and lays it out and all that stuff. And the industry was kind of, it is what it is. I think we all know that story, and I was kind of starting to burn out. We had one kid, wanted to have a second one, and I was kind of getting tired of working until 2 a.m. and just not enjoying it the way I used to, and frankly not as involved in it as I should have been, right? I mean, my attention was definitely wandering. I was starting to do this part-time, writing about Windows Mobile. So then in December 2009, we pulled the trigger, and I hung up the newspaper thing and started doing this full-time and switched over to Android to run AC.
Nice.
Yeah, so, I mean, real quick, first of all, I didn't know the heavy metal thing. That is awesome. Do you have, like, anything from back in the day? I mean, because I'm not a huge metal fan anymore, but I used to be back in the day. So do you have any, like albums floating around out there, or...?
Nothing that anyone should hear. My dad found my dad found an old videotape the other day. I've got to get it transcoded and see. No, it's we were good. We never got too big when I was involved. I think the guys went on and got a little bigger in their day. But I started working and doing that thing, and it just kind of fell off. I miss it. I don't miss my life back then, but I miss playing the music.
Yeah, I miss being on stage. I'm a musician as well, so I definitely miss being on stage, that's for sure. So, Kevin, you're up with the next question, sir.
So what is some of the history about Android Central? How long has Android Central been around, and how was it that made you transition from covering Windows Mobile to Android itself?
They started the site. I mean, if you know anything about the background of mobile nations and formerly smartphone experts, it started with Visor Central way back in the day with Marcus Adelson, and then Dieter Bohn came on. Dieter's with The Verge now, and has done really well for himself there. And they started growing these communities, and we acquired Crackberry, and then I forget what iMore's name was back when we first picked them up. Might have been the iPhone blog then. The idea is this community of websites, this network of sites that each one covers a platform. So AC started, and AC is one of the few ones that has the original name now. I think it's us and Crackberry. Started right as Android launched. And I came on, was it a year or two later? I forget exactly when Android started. I should really know the answer to that. But I was writing part-time for WM Experts, which was our Windows mobile site, because that's what I was using. I fell in love with the Trio 750, which is what got me into this whole thing. I was researching, this phone because I wanted to buy it. I really wanted it, but I wasn't going to spend, $350 or whatever it was at the time without reading everything I could first. Right. And I found these sites and started posting in the forums, and Dieter says, hey, do you want to try writing, part-time? And I said, sure, I work at night. I can write during the day, no problem. Ended up making decent part-time money at that, and then, we're talking, he's like, look, we really need somebody to run Android full-time. Looks like it's going to take off, and I was seriously burned out of the paper and just not doing a great job anymore. So I said, all right, let's try something different. It was scary. It was, leaving an 11-year job with, benefits and healthcare and 401ks and all that stuff, and doing something that's, you don't want to say less professional, because by all means this is a professional job. The company is awesome. Right. But it's new, it's different. I'm working from home. I was technically self-employed for a year or two at the beginning. I forget which. Right. Just totally different. I do not regret the decision at all. It's just,
I bet. I mean, it's been a whirlwind, as big as Mobile Nations and Android Central in particular have gotten over the years. I mean, you guys have done some amazing things and have covered some amazing events.
Yeah, I mean, just people we talk to, they're just like, yeah, mobile nobody, yeah. I mean, you guys are right. It's like you guys, The Verge, and Engadget. Period. I mean, that's what most people.
No, thanks. It's an honor to be, even mentioned in the same sentence as those guys. And I know a lot of them. They are all really good people. That's part of the fun of this job, is just the people you get to hang out with. And we don't ever get to see each other nearly as often as we would like. Right. And we'll bust each other's balls, on Twitter and stuff during the day. But at night, when the job's done, we're all hanging out and having a beer, talking about it, and complaining together. It really is a lot of fun. And I don't think I would want to do this if you didn't have people like that around at all these events.
Right. So the other thing is you kind of mentioned it, this transition to a non standard job. We've seen these huge shifts in the last, I would say, month and a half years, a couple of years of the traditional go to work 9 to 5 to a more flexible, more independent contractor style of work, and it is different for someone who's used to a system in which, okay, it's almost like school, right? You go from school to college to work, and it's all kind of the same model, and you work hard during the day, you do whatever, and then you move to this thing where you have to be much more flexible, you have to be on the road a lot. I mean, you're on the road a lot, and so having to learn what that lifestyle is like, and it's not, you don't take days off, you take periods of chunks of time off. I mean, that's what I've learned the most, and Kevin recently left his 9 to 5 job and is doing this full time. So this is it's all new, and it's definitely, I think, the way in which people are going to start being employed in the future.
Yeah, I mean, it helped that I came from a job that wasn't traditional. There's not a lot about, especially the newsroom side of a newspaper, that's normal. Sure. Especially when you're going to work at 3, 4 in the afternoon, getting off not necessarily at midnight or 1 a.m. You get off when you're done. Right. And that was kind of a weird hybrid job. Unless you're an editor, you were still hourly. So we had to, especially as you're managing people who are hourly, that would become a little difficult sometimes, because there were nights that were later than others, and you'd have to manage hours and stuff. It gets worse when you're salary, because then you don't leave till you're done, and you get paid the same no matter what. Right. My wife worked at the paper for 13 years here, and put in a number of years at other papers before that. So she understood what the job was. She understood that I wasn't, going from a weird job to a normal job. Right. And talking to, I remember talking on the phone with Marcus and Dieter, because Marcus didn't know me at the time. And I said, look, I don't know what a normal job is. I don't want to go back to a normal job. So yeah, I haven't done 9 to 5 in a long time, even though those are kind of the hours I'm in the office here. My head is still kind of on all the time. But right. When you say, you don't take days off, well, yeah, I don't, and that's actually not a good thing. Right. I wouldn't hold that off. I wouldn't hold that up as a good way to work. You've got to
right.
be able to turn it off sometimes.
Right.
And I don't do nearly as good at that as I should.
Right. Well, you're still kind of a role model a little bit. I'm going to say that just because you still take the time out to spend time with your family, which I know a lot of people, not only just in the tech industry, but gaming or whatever, their family kind of comes a second, and that's interesting to me because they're the ones who I think cool to keep people going. So I don't like seeing that separation there, and I think you do a good job. At least it appears that way, anyways. That you do a good job of balancing that a little bit. I'm sure that's really difficult.
It's tough, but at the same time, the flexibility of this job lets me say, all right, you know what? I'm going to go to my kid's soccer practice, even if I'm just standing there. I'm still there, or I'm going to go to this school event that's in the middle of the day.
That means a lot. You know?
It does, and there were a lot of times, it's not as bad as it used to be, but I remember a lot of times where I was like the only dad in the room.
You're like, yes!
Yeah, and there's that.
Hold that over you, everybody else, right? Yeah,
but yeah, and there are times it's really tough. The week I spent in Korea a couple years ago, when I'm going to bed right as I'm watching my family wake up in the morning, that was tough.
Yeah.
A lot of days on the road, and I wasn't a big traveler before this. I didn't even enjoy flying. I had to get over that pretty quick. It's tough on my wife, staying at home with 2 kids. So, I couldn't do this without them. I still don't do it right. I'm still trying to get better at balancing it and shutting it off. But I think we're at a pretty good place right now. And a lot of that comes down to the organization,
right.
on my side. Yeah, if I get Jerry and Alex and everybody else, and we're all clicking, we're all doing exactly what we're supposed to, and we're planning things properly, then it makes it a lot easier for me to do my job and then take off for a day, and everybody else to do their job and have time away, and that's important for them as well.
The machine's a well-oiled machine, and when it works, it works. When it doesn't, it doesn't.
It's Android Central is not just you. You got Jerry, you've got Alex, and you've got Andrew, not to mention all the other quote-unquote role players that are kind of behind the scenes that are maybe not as more well-known. I mean, I know you guys have picked up a lot more different writers over the last few months.
Yeah, we started this newsroom initiative. It's kind of weird the way I look at things, because I knew from the beginning I didn't just want to reblog everything. It says Android, we must write it. Well,
I know.
It's not necessarily worth my time doing that. What can I be doing better that's more interesting to me, that's better from a traffic standpoint, or it's just better content. That doesn't mean the news shouldn't be written, and that's kind of what we got down to. So we started hiring for this newsroom position, and Derek Kessler does a great job running it, and I don't even know how many writers he has for it. But basically, we can fire the news over that needs to be written, but doesn't need to take my time away from something else, or Jerry's time, or Alex's time, or whatever. It's really freed us up to not worry so much about going on the road and going to events, or being able to take 2 or 3 days off to actually write a review and sink some time in it. I mean, I remember the first couple of years where I didn't have a choice but to work on airplanes. Just I had to do it, or things didn't get up on the site. Right. Not nearly as much of an issue anymore, and the newsroom is a big part of that.
Right.
That's awesome. Yeah, and Derek. WebOS.
Mm-hmm. Oh. Derek came over from WebOS Nation, which is how he started working with us full time, and it's great to have him. And he's got that weird kind of perspective from this platform that has died, and can see things that maybe aren't working so well within Android that could possibly lead it down that path, or BlackBerry is the bigger contender for that these days.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that's been tough on Kevin, but go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah. So you mentioned, a lot of these past changes, the whole newsroom thing at Mobile Nations, that switch. What are some of the future directions and things that people can look forward to from Android Central? Because I know you guys have done a lot of site redesigns, across the board.
You want to know our secrets? That's what you're asking.
That's just if there's anything special you guys or people could be looking forward to.
Yeah, just between us. Just between us.
We're in this weird spot with the redesign, and I get that the site itself can be a little heavy. We're in this weird, not quite responsive, but not quite normal, old-school-looking blog anymore. Mm-hmm. And we're kind of updating it piece by piece instead of doing this giant change all at once. We flip the switch. yeah, varying reasons for that. Some of it I agree with, some of it I might not, but that's fine. That's the way we're going to do it. The end result is basically going to be, we're going to give you a bunch of different ways to see this site. You can do it as more of a traditional blog if you still want, or we're going to present it in a way that just gives you so much information we might bludgeon you over the head a little bit. But just these quick little snippets of, all right, here's this, this, and this. All right, I want to read that. I don't want to read that. Fine. We're bringing analytics into a little bit more in the future, I think, to where I won't necessarily have to manage, hey, here's what's the most important thing. I'm going to get a little analytical help from that, and it should be automatic. Obviously the design plays a big part. We have a really good design team and a really good tech team, by the way.
Who does that? Is that in-house, or is that...
It's mostly in-house. Okay. We outsource some of the work, which is not uncommon. But the design, David Lundblad, I think we had him on the podcast once when we first actually kind of redesigned the header, and people were freaking out about that. So right, David has his vision of...
Change, no! Yeah. Change bad!
David has his vision of what he wants things to look like, and we give feedback, and we test things, and we try things, and they don't always work. And they will continue to change, and that's part of the fun thing about this. Whenever you change something and somebody says, no, that's not good, I hate this, and you say, well, try it for a minute. Okay, I like it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's like, come on, guys, really? You don't like this now, but you'll move from like one version of either Android or one version of this or one version of that to the other, and you'll be like, and then I say, oh, I love this thing. And you're just like, come on.
And it happens every time.
Yeah. Well, I want to extend the invitation for the developers to come onto our other show, Codecast, and maybe show how they did that. That'd be a lot of fun. But so a question that I have, let's go back to the site just real quick as far as the content generating content. One thing that I've noticed about you guys, Android, the whole thing, but you in particular, is that your original crew, like the A team, if you will, they focus on these exclusives or original content. How important do you think that is going forward in the tech industry as reporting the news to not just be a mirror site, right, where you're just repeating the same things from, say, TechCrunch or Ars Technica, or Twit, or Android Police, just all these different gadgets and the Verge. It's not like this echo chamber of sorts. This providing news as a service.
I think it starts out with what's interesting to me, and you said it exactly right. It's news as a service. If all I'm doing is repeating something somebody else said day in and day out, if that's right. And I don't even know what % of our content is that now. I get that some of it has to be that.
Right.
Start with, if you are going to have to reblog something somebody else said, that's still reporting the news. It's reporting somebody else's news. But it's not unimportant. But the question then is, all right, what can you add to that?
Right.
What keeps me interested? If I was a reader, what would I want to read about this? And so, original content is key. It's key, in this end of what I do. It's key for a newspaper. A newspaper full of AP content, nobody's going to read that. Why would you read that? You buy a local newspaper for your local content, and that has to be originally produced. So for us, start with easy stuff, right? Start with device reviews, because that's easy. You've got them here. You just review the heck out of them. I made another point once we really started going to events, and I got that figured out, and I still remember the first one I went to. I had no idea what the hell I was doing. I should go back and look at the content I got out of that and see if I actually wrote anything. But we made a point of saying, all right, we're going to be the site that we go everywhere. We see, or everywhere we possibly can. And the things I can't go to, I want to, get some people in those cities so maybe they can go. And I'm really fortunate now. I don't have to go to everything. I can pick and choose a little more.
Right.
If it's something West Coast that just I can't justify spending 48 hours away for this one thing, I can send Andrew out there. So original content comes about in different ways. You need to be a little careful, I think, with using the term exclusive, or as I like to call, break exclusive.
Right.
Sure.
There's original content, and then there's kind of stretching it. And I've never been a big fan of anonymous sources for a number of reasons, but I especially these days, we'll see a bunch of anonymously sourced stories that are just kind of common sense.
Right.
Okay, if somebody confirmed it to you, great, but it's still not necessarily breaking all sorts of new ground. Or I see websites that basically all they do is, they scrape change logs, differentials on a website. If, hey, something changed, and we're going to tell you what change. Fine. But that's easy. That's not unlike reporting something else somebody has done. I like that,
Right.
that we have to think a little bit. Some of my favorite posts have been ones that Jerry's done, that he and I have to spend a couple days on editing and rewriting a little bit and just thinking about it. A relatively recent one was the KitKat SD card changes.
Oh, yeah.
And it took him a number of hours of research just to figure out what was going on, and then to try to explain it to me in English. And even then, I had questions, and we had to go back out to it and fix it some more and change it up. And to me, I think that's the really important stuff, that we can help people figure out how to use these devices and what's going on. And that's fun for me to read.
Yeah, well, and I'm sure that brings in some of the most hits because, again, it's that original take, right? Because me and Kevin and I both read Android Central to make sure that we're not echoing your guys' stories. We specifically make sure that we're not, and that's really hard to do because what we want to do is provide that original stuff. So we have a writer who does like hack your whatever, like your Surface or your Mac or all these kinds of things, and it's all about providing that sense of service or that unique insight from a particular group set. And it can be a little difficult because you want to get that information out there, but I'm sure that, like I said, some of those more unique ones drive in a lot of traffic. Yes? No?
You would. I don't want to spoil it. You would be surprised what some of the biggest traffic drivers are.
Is it the clickbait or what they call clickbait or whatever?
No, actually, no.
Okay, good. Good.
It's funny. We get so much crap for doing these real simple how-to stories.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, those are some of the most important ones. I mean,
oh yeah.
Why would you turn your nose up? And Google's always talking about the next 5 billion devices, right? Why would you turn your nose up at the people who are just getting these devices and need help learning how to use them and what to do with them, and just these short, little, easy explainers? I get it. It's way beneath the nerds out there. It's way beneath me. That's not my, it's writing those things is not my idea of a fun time. But there are people out there who absolutely need that sort of content, and it shows. We wouldn't keep doing them if we didn't see that people were reading them. How would that make sense? So it's funny when people make fun of us for that. It's like, no, you don't get it. You don't.
Because you've got to cater such a large scope of readers. I mean, my dad, he just got his first smartphone like 2 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, that's the perfect kind of place. And it's perfect kind of posts.
And we don't come anywhere near doing it as well as I would like to. It's so hard because there's so many devices and everything is different. I constantly have to explain to the other guys, especially watching Renee do all these iOS tutorials. I'm like, I just can't. I can't just do one and say, here's how you do this thing, because it's different on every OS version, on every device, and on every different version of that device. T-Mobile will have something that's just a little bit different than Verizon, and suddenly the whole story's bad. So it's really, really tough. But when people, oh, look, it's another Android Central story, blah, 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 it's like, no, you don't get it. We do these for a reason. We can tell people are reading them.
I came across Android Central during for the very first time I came across Android Central when I was trying to figure out how to do something. And I truly believe that that's what most normals, we'll call them, do when they do a search, and that's the reason why you guys pop up in the SEO rankings and stuff. So 2 quick things. First of all, yes, I completely agree and understand. And the other thing too is CEOs, like the older generation, right, who are in positions of power. They didn't grow up with this technology. In fact, this is kind of a recent phenomenon. This shift from PCs and the desktop life to a more mobile experience, right, where they have more devices and on the go. And you know what? They don't have time to learn how to do all this stuff. And I find myself educating more, executives than ever. And Android Central and WPC and everybody are my fallbacks. And I think you guys do a phenomenal job on that front too. So it's not just people who are getting into it for the first time, but it's people who need that education going forward. The second thing was I noticed on the last, and it's being blasted all over the television, on the last Samsung, I want to say S5 or maybe it's the Note.
It's the Note commercial, yeah.
The Note, like you guys are front and center Android Central.
I'll tell you the funny story of it. That was that week that I was in New York and Chicago and just gone all week and exhausted. We had a couple nights where we got 2 hours of sleep working on all this stuff. And I don't think I've said this out loud, but Jerry says, "Watch this, I'm going to get fired." And he writes that because he was hot on something that day. And I'm going to write this. I don't care. I'm going to get fired. And Samsung picked it up and used it in the commercial.
That's gorgeous.
Yeah, no, that was all Jerry. I had no idea he was right. I was on an airplane.
That's the best. That's the best little story I've heard, man. I'm telling. Yeah, I was on a plane. I had no idea. The next thing you know, this is in one of the probably the most expensive commercials that have come out recently. So that's amazing right there. Kevin, you're up with the next question.
All right, so one thing that I would love to know is if you could suggest one thing to Google to implement into a future version of Android, whether it's Android L or whatever they're going to come up with down the future. They would implement your idea. What would you suggest?
I mean, obviously, I think it's install the Android Central app in every build of Android.
Have that a requirement.
Make that a default.
You know what I'm totally jealous of is the new parental account features on iOS 8. Mm-hmm. I would love to be able to get my kids using these a little bit more, but right now iOS is still better for children. I think, being able to give my kid this account. And they want to buy something, it pops up a little notification on my phone, saying, "Hey, do you want to let them buy this and use it?" I'm like, yeah, all right, that's fine. I'm totally jealous of that feature. That is really cool. Other than that, I don't know. Ask me again after L comes out, and we'll see what little gems are in there.
Yeah. Speaking of the Android Central app and just the whole Mobile Nations apps in general for Android, man, you guys did a bang-up job on those.
Yeah.
Thanks. No, we've got this guy Neil in Australia. Neil's a longtime coder, did a lot of BlackBerry stuff back in the day, and still does, I guess. So Neil's been working on it. He's doing our iOS apps as well. If I could clone the man, I would.
I know.
Yeah.
So, no, we're getting there. We've still got some functionality we need to add in there. Notifications are still coming. I still like to change up the sign-on and get single sign-on working the way it should. What was the other thing we're adding? Notifications. Oh, search still has to happen, but search is a really slow process because we have to get it integrated into the sites first, and we have to get it integrated into all the sites, and then it has to work well with Android and with iOS and with Windows phones. So it's a big ship to turn, as I like to say.
Right.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No doubt. A quick question that I have as far as your guys' apps and not just that, but from an overall standpoint, how do you guys deal with feedback? I mean, I know that I follow Daniel Rubino because I'm a heavy Windows and Windows Phone user, and I follow all you guys too. But I noticed that there was kind of a back and forth, and like when every day there's usually a back and forth, but there were some trolls. Let's just say that. And how do you guys deal with that feedback that is not necessarily bad collectively, but I mean, you just get like hammered with like negative feedback sometimes. How do you guys deal with that?
There's a fine line between feedback and trolling.
Okay.
And sometimes you get it wrong. Sometimes you get a lot of people yelling at you about something, and you're sticking to your guns and you're standing your ground and you're saying, "No, you're wrong," and then you look back, a month later, a year later, and you're like, you know what, they were right. We probably could have done this a little different. I think it's so easy to be myopic with all this and think everything's always going to be the same. Look at the redesign, right? If the redesign really was that bad, and there are parts of it that were not perfect, and there were parts that we were tweaking on day one, on day two. There were, performance issues that we're still working on and always trying to get better. So it's real easy to be myopic and for everybody to kick and scream, in the first 5 minutes and not take that larger view of things. And that, that goes with everything in life, I think. Patience, especially today with everything going on in this Twitter society, there's such little patience out there now. So I really do envy people. My wife, one of our former newspaper editors is working with my wife again in her job, and that was something I was always really impressed to see with him. Is while the rest of us are running around with our hair on fire, he's stepping back, he's seeing the big picture, he's being patient about things, and it's really something I try to do myself more now. In that, when the world's going to hell, step back, take a deep breath, look around, and really see the whole field, really see the whole game.
Yeah. I need to learn how to do that a little better, because I'm very reactionary at first, and I'm just like, it's good I was not around anybody at this moment in time. So you're telling me that you don't have pictures of those people and you throw darts at their faces or punch them out.
No.
So Kevin, you're up with the next question.
So if Android were to, for some strange reason, just disappear, Google said, you know what, Android, we're done with it. Which mobile ecosystem would you feel most comfortable swapping over to?
I still think, and I've said this before, I still think I would probably dive into Windows Phone for a while. I think it's beautifully done. I really enjoyed the design process they've gone through. It's really come a long way, in the couple years. I was at the Windows Phone 7 launch event.
Nice.
I was at the announcement in Barcelona when they announced it as Windows Phone 7 Series, and the horrible name, and I was in New York, and 6 months later when they launched the first devices. So and coming from Windows Mobile, it still has a little place in my heart. I think Microsoft has the most headroom to make there, and they're making a lot of really good decisions. Will it be as big as Android and iOS? Maybe not. But it might well end up being better. I don't know. They have their own services to integrate it into, and they're doing a lot of things right. And speaking of being patient, they might be the ones really doing it. When you see Nokia die off, and you see BlackBerry die off the way it has, and Palm is dead, and somehow Microsoft is still around. Some of that, I think, a lot of that goes to just the sheer size of the company, and they have money and time to spend there. But I really like how they're not just jumping into everything, and you're seeing this natural progression of the OS.
Yeah, I think another big thing for me, because I'm a developer, is I'm able to create those universal apps, and I could obviously do that in Android too, to a certain extent. But I think that there are some similarities when we're talking about the developmental process and being able to distribute. And I think that they're really doing a good job. Windows is on their side of trying to bring all that under one, with their dev center instead of being phone and tablets or desktop, bringing those dev centers together and really just being able to push out those multiple to multiple platforms, especially Xbox. So you got Xbox Phone and all the things. So I'm thinking the same thing with Android with this L. That was a pretty amazing. There are just a lot of amazing UI elements, a lot more consolidation you see. Especially with the news that I've read lately of Android trying to rein in this certain sense of customization because they don't want it to go crazy anymore. I don't think, and I wouldn't want that any more fragmented, if you will. Not that there's a fragmentation problem, because I think that's a way overblown terminology as well as statement. But I think reining in some of that and developing a consistent user experience is going to be important in their fight Androids against Apple and Windows.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. At the same time, I think we might be reading a little too much into that. There's Android, the OS, and then there's Google's Android, right? Those are two very different things. AOSP is this platform on which to do things. Google's Android, when you're using Google services, is this totally different monster. Look at what Amazon has done. Right. Amazon has done it really well with really good design and their own services and their own APIs, and I'm not saying it's perfect, but for Amazon's purposes, it's done really well, and it proves that you can do that sort of thing, and you can do it and be good at it. Now, not everybody can do that, right? Amazon has Amazon money. If I wanted to go and start my own, Android-based platform these days, it wouldn't happen. But when you talk about open source Android, that's what it's there for. If Google didn't, I think Google kind of came about it the wrong direction. If you want to talk about them being right, or look at it like a sports game, all right? I played soccer for a long time, and when you're refereeing soccer, it's a lot easier and better to start off being kind of a hard ass in the beginning of the game. You know, you call every little foul. You know, you give cards where you need to give cards. You can do that in the beginning. You can't do it at the end because nobody has respect for you at that point, right? Oh, the ref's not going to call that. I can just get away with it. Sort of the same thing here a little bit, right? It's a lot easier to be strict at the beginning and loosen up over time, which is what iOS is doing, right? Now it's not loosening a lot, but it's loosening a little bit than it is to come from the other direction and just have the wild, wild west and then rein it in. It's not an unnatural thing, but when you start, interjecting more rules and decisions like that, it's going to make people notice. But that's all that's happening. I don't think it's some evil plan from Google to, or the iron fist is the fun little words everybody likes using.
I definitely don't. I definitely don't think that. From just a pure design standpoint, though, like I said, the user experience. I mean, now they're starting to, like I said, compete against a very developing iOS. I mean, obviously it's huge. iOS is very large, and their fan base is large. So they're trying to compete with that consistent experience. That's a little bit of what I saw of why they needed to kind of say, you know what, we're gonna.
I don't think I don't think it's a competition thing, and actually I kind of look at it in the same way we do things. You want to make the best UI you can. You want to make the best OS you can, right? And you're going to look at another OS and say, you know what, that works pretty well. I might borrow some of that. Same thing in what we do, right? I want to make the best website I can with the best content and design that we can. I'm not going to sit there and stare at some other Android site and be like, oh my God, they just did this, now I have to do this. No. I read very few other Android websites. I want to be concerned about what it is we're writing day in and day out, and what we're writing next, and then the 10 stories after that, and the 10 stories after that. I don't have time to worry about everybody else.
I love that.
Worry about competing. No, we're not competing. I'm doing my thing. I'll let them go worry about their thing. And it's very much the same thing in the OSs, I think.
I think that's perfect, because I always tell people when I'm instructing is perfect your craft.
Yep.
Don't listen to the haters. Don't pay attention to the other team. Let's stick with some sports metaphors. Don't let them get inside your head. Perfect your craft, become good at it, and continue to work hard at it. And that is your thing. If other people are imitating, or you find yourself in the same particular parallel lines, it's okay. Just keep doing your thing and keep perfecting your craft. Absolutely. Kevin, you're up with our probably last question.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and wrap it up with this last thing. Android Central Podcast recently hit 200 episodes a few weeks back. So what have been some of the memorable challenges and some of the great memories you faced running such a popular podcast for the last 4+ years?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, it all goes back to...
Who's your favorite? Like I said, just between us, who's your favorite?
Who's our favorite guest?
No. who's your favorite team member on the podcast? No, I'm just messing with you. You don't have to. I'm totally just joking. Go ahead.
The best thing about our podcast is that I think we can change it up a little bit. No, I mean, I go back to the podcast that I started listening to. And, Dieter and Dan, it was known only as Malatesta back then. When I first met Dan, I only knew him as Malatesta. It took a long time to break that habit. But listening to Dieter and Mike Overbo on the iPhone blog podcast, Mickey Papillon, who started the AC podcast with me, it was just me and Mickey. Listening to those, listening to all the Twitch shows back in the day, and thinking, all right, yeah, we should do this. It's a cool little way because you get to start thinking that you know the people a little bit, even though you don't. You just know a little sliver of them,
right?
Which helps when I start getting hate mail. But you get to know the people a little bit, and that's why doing podcasts like this is fun, because I get to talk about other things, and you get to hear the voices, you get inside, you get little anecdotes when I start talking about my wife and kids, and just little things like that. And I think that's what really ties all this tech and all these toys together.
Yeah, it shows the diversity and that we're not one-dimensional characters. We're those round characters. There's different aspects to. We're huge fans, and you graced us with your presence. So now you know of us, and now we learned a little bit more about you guys. So it's definitely behind the the structure, if you will, and that's just it's sometimes priceless, and that's what I really enjoy about podcasts in general. What I don't like though, and maybe I can get your thoughts on this, is people that look at this as just and they kind of talk like podcasts like that that aren't fueled, right? That they don't have like the certain sense of purpose or passion, kind of drive me nuts a little bit.
It's weird. It's actually so nice for me to go on other people's podcasts because leading a podcast is tough. Trying to get things from point A to point B to Z way down the line an hour from now, it's not easy. And
you didn't have to worry about getting stuck on somebody's camera.
Well, then there's that. It's amazing how bad I am at doing that.
Yeah, I've done it before too, so don't feel bad.
Yeah, no, it's just nice being able to come and answer questions and talk and not have to worry about the pacing and where it's moving and did we talk about this? All right, we got to talk about this. All right, now I got to make room for an ad read, and it's very relaxing going on somebody else's show now.
Well, the invitation is always open to you. If you ever want to hop back on our show and talk about whatever you want to talk about, please hit us up and we'll just right there do it. Hey guys, I just want to hang out for about an hour. Is that cool? Yep, absolutely. We'll pop you back on. So Kevin, was there any last questions you had?
No, I don't know. We've taken up a lot of Phil's time today. We do definitely appreciate it tremendously.
Yeah, we told him 30 minutes, and it's now 49, so we owe you something for that. So thank you so much for being on the show. We just honestly, from the bottom of our hearts, appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely, guys. Appreciate it, and keep up the good work.
Yeah, hopefully we'll see you at CES this year.
I'll be there.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right, well, we'll tell everybody how to find you on the audio side. So thank you so much for being on. Have a wonderful day, and take care. We'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely. See you.
Thanks, Phil.
Bye.
Awesome. Great show, great talk. Love it, love it, love it.
How do we follow that up? You know what I mean?
I know. That's just what we do. We throw in. It's like deep sea fishing. You go cast your line and catch the big fish. We've had Mary Jo Foley, we've had John Sonmez and Phil Nickinson, and
where do we go from here? Let's try Leo Laporte next time. See what he's up to. Let's get Paul Thurrott on here. Let's get Daniel Rubino. Get all those guys.
Right. I mean, who doesn't want to talk to those guys?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. We love you guys. No, seriously. I mean, we're huge fans. And we really like podcasts. Period. People are like, how do you even know? I'm like, oh, dude, I'm telling you, this that's my music. I have that going on in the background. So speaking of music, let's get into our music, the songs that Kevin and JJ write together.
Right.
And make beautiful, sweet sounds like Fergie and Jesus.
And for people watching live, you probably have, if you've watched it prior episodes, you've noticed normally we're both in the same location.
Well, yeah, today, he's about right. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Right. So today we're doing things a little bit different, just for some technical issues, but yeah.
Yep, my technical issues.
So the first thing that I want to talk about is there's been a lot of discussion over the last week about iPhone, whether it's iOS 8.0.1, that whole update, kind of disabling the Touch ID and some cellular servers for 40,000 plus people, and then there's also Bendgate, where people are talking about their iPhone 6 Pluses, bending from being placed in a pocket, and is it just truly 9 people contacting Apple, or is it there really more? Because with those numbers, the 9, that's not factoring in people like Russell Holly, who mentioned on Android Central's most recent podcast that he took his phone, he bought it at Verizon, and took it back to Verizon. So Apple isn't going to be factoring in that number. How many devices has this happened with Verizon or T-Mobile or Sprint or AT&T?
Sure.
How widespread? But a lot of people were complaining, well, maybe Apple's not really stress testing these devices enough, and every manufacturer is going to be stress testing these devices, because that's the worst thing that a company wants, is bad PR like Apple has been receiving over this whole Bendgate thing. So they opened it up, for people, for media to come in and see, hey, we do stress test these things, by the way. And then Consumer Reports did their comparison with a whole bunch of devices, but think they really went the full gamut with devices that they should have tested, because with the 6 Plus, you really should only be comparing that against devices of that size. So, of course, the Galaxy Notes, they didn't even do with the Lumia 1520. Maybe it's because they knew, well, we're not going to be able to break it. I don't know.
I don't
what
know.
the reasoning was behind that, but it's like,
Right.
Use these 6-inch displays and these close to 6-inch displays for
So
this testing.
a couple of questions for you. So first of all, Bengate is a play on words from first Benghazi and Watergate, both scandals, quote unquote, that were very popular in the news. So we just want to let everybody know what that means, because some people might not know. The other thing is I have a question for you. How do we know how many devices have been affected by this scenario? Now, what it's going on is the iPhone 6 Plus, apparently, if you bend it in the middle or somewheres, it will bend and break or stay bent. So it is a big problem for those who put that phone in their back pocket, which, by the way, don't do that with any phone. And for those people who have like maybe super skinny jeans, I guess,
Right.
or maybe in purses or whatever the case is. So so I just wanted to get that out of the way. So question, how many do we know?
Well, according to Apple, they were talking, it's approximately 9, probably a few more that have actually contacted Apple to say, hey, we need to get a replacement because our device is bent. Now, of course, you've got all these other, a lot of websites that are just going around, YouTube people just going around intentionally bending them on purpose, doing it in a way that's not going to happen if it's just sitting in your front pant pocket. That's just not going to happen. But that's what happened with Russell Holly. I mean, it just kind of bent. Just he said that it was kind of wobbling on the desk or table. So that's why he figured, well, it's not. I mean, it's not bent the same way that if you intentionally bend it.
Yeah, but I don't think any phone should bend like that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that when you're doing those sorts of things that it should bend at all.
Oh, I agree. I mean, it's the danger of this trend of thin is better.
Well,
Yeah.
and the HTC M8, the first one, not the second one. I remember I was my brother's then at the time fiance had one, and it had a little bend in it, and that was really strange to me. I was like, what the? Because I remember listening to another podcast and somebody saying, well, the HTC M8 or whatever, it doesn't bend, and maybe because of the design and stuff. But no, I've seen it bent. And I asked, I was like, well, what did you do? Were you trying to use it as a skateboard? What's going on? And no, she was like, no, it was just in the front thing of her pocket. So that's interesting to me. I mean, Nokia has gotten a lot of flack about their polycarbonate design, and I've never bent my Nokia devices, and I've not bent the polycarbonate devices in general that I've either tested or whatever. So this metal idea, I mean, is it really the best? I mean, did Samsung kind of have it right with their bendiness?
By staying with plastic.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, I don't know, because you never hear of anything with Galaxy devices bending and stuff like that.
Now you hear a whole bunch of other stuff. Yeah.
But I mean, it's like not crazy.
Right. So yeah, very, very interesting story. Did you want to add anything else to that?
The one thing with some of the YouTube videos where the people are getting like real extreme with the bending, what's funny is that after they bend the iPhone 6 Plus, is that the display is still responsive. It still responds to touch. You can still use it, even when the display is like a quarter of an inch away from the actual body of the phone. It still responds.
That would be weird. That's like, yeah. So now I have like a hybrid LG Flex, right? I have an LG, like it curves or what. Which, I'm sorry, LG and AT. That's a ridiculous device. I'm just stop.
I liked it. I'm sorry.
I didn't. Yeah, don't apologize. I'm not apologizing for my opinion. So anyways, the next story is the new Nexus device. codenamed Shamu, supposedly codenamed that. This is just hearsay, but I want to educate the public and inform you guys. This move to bigger devices, kind of playing off the last story. Do we think that this is the future? What the future looks like in competition with the iPhone 6 Plus, the supposed next release of the Nexus line, which is Android's, pure Google experience, and Google's pure Android, their version of Android, like Phil correctly said. Is this the new norm where this Shamu device is supposedly going to be a 5.5-inch display?
Oh, they're saying it's like 5.95. I mean, we're
or
pushing
5.95 or 6. Now, I have a 6-inch display, 6-inch display. I wouldn't dream of anything smaller than that, but I'm not a normal user. I'm a pretty heavy user when it comes to this stuff, and my eyesight sucks really bad. So, plus the battery life. I have to say, I was rocking the Nexus 5, and the battery life on that thing is awful. I mean, it's just awful. But that speaks to all those sorts of devices. 4.7-inch display, or right around that 5-inch mark. The battery life is terrible. I mean, it's just awful compared to this. I mean, what is this? 3,200 milliamp battery. So when you guys are out there purchasing devices or looking to the your future device, and if you want to go bigger, make sure the battery can handle it. Make sure that battery is at minimum 2,800 milliamp battery.
All right. I mean, Motorola is also well known for their battery life technology. I don't know what kind of magic fairy dust they sprinkle on their devices before they push them out the door.
Well, Verizon's Droid, I believe, or not Droid, I'm sorry, the Razr. Verizon's
Razr Max.
Motorola Razr Max. That got excellent battery life, and it was slim as all get out. It had Kevlar backing. It was ridiculous. Stop a bullet. No, I'm just kidding. But it's solid. It was a solid device.
I mean, that's kind of been one of the early complaints of the new Moto X, is the battery life's not quite what they expected it to be.
Really?
I can't remember the exact size of that, so hopefully...
if only there was a way.
All right, we'll get one from our AT&T or Verizon rep, and we'll put it through its paces. I'm excited to try it out because I really like the Moto X from 2013, so I'm looking forward to a nice little bump in size. They bumped the screen size up, and
5.2 HD display, Moto X.
Yeah. So back to the Nexus 6 speculation. It's definitely got my attention, and they talk about a 3,200 milliamp, battery. If it gets me the same battery life as my 1520, that might be the next Android device I purchase. Curious, as long as its camera is as good as the one that they threw in the newest Moto X. Some screenshots I've seen, photos taken from the new Moto X. They look pretty good, which is obviously going to be a little bit better than the previous generation Moto X. So I'm looking forward to this. And I mean, we're coming up on October. We only got tomorrow's the last day of September, so October's Nexus month. So that's when we'll get new Nexus devices.
Yep. So in keeping with that, I just wanted to inform everybody, because that's what we do here, that the memory on this thing is 2 gigabytes on the Moto X. It has a 2-megapixel front-facing camera, and it has... where's it at? 13-megapixel rear-facing camera with 4K UHD video capture, 1080p HD video, 4 times digital zoom, burst mode, audio HDR, panorama, tap to focus. So I don't know. I'm going to have to check this out. But one of the things that I don't like about it in the design, and I know this is me being picky, but it's the dimple for the Motorola that obviously was going to be a fingerprint reader.
Yeah, I mean, there was talk of that last year with the dimple, and the little dimple's not quite as pronounced, you would say, on this new Moto X as the previous one, so it's a little bit less deep. The new Moto G has pretty much a similar design to last year's Moto X.
Does it now? Interesting. So,
Yeah.
what do you think about the naming convention of these things? Do you think that they're doing that in order to compete with, like I said, I really think that Android and iOS, and obviously iPhones, because iOS doesn't really run on anything else unless you're Alejandro Ramirez, one of our team members who was able to hack his Lumia 1520 and put iOS 8 on there, but whatever. Um, so iOS on the iPhone, Android with Android L. Do you think they're trying to compete here with these naming conventions, making it easier for normal people to get into this stuff?
I think kind of it confuses people because when you have in 2013 you released the Moto X, and in 2014 your new device is also named Moto X.
I always can, I don't keep up with a whole lot of Android stuff, but I mean, when I do, I'm like, what?
Yeah, could just and then what HTC did, the HTC One, and then which they ended up in 2014 saying, well, that's the M7. This is the HTC One M8. That's It's like you've had a device name, you release
Right.
your new device, and then you give the old device kind of like a new name. I'm like, what is up with this, guys?
It's
So
frustrating.
yeah, there's some confusion there. I think I mean, just people like us that kind of follow the scene, it's not as confusing. But people that are just walking into the store say, I want to get a Moto X. Which one? The one from last year, which is this price, or the newest one that is this price? What do you
Yeah,
mean?
salespeople got to be going crazy with this stuff. Like, I want an HTC One. Oh, which
Well, which
one? The
one? You want the
2013,
you want the one from last year?
2014.
Do you want the one from this year? Do you want the one with Windows? Which
And
one do
you
you
know,
want?
and you know what happens? You know what happens? They end up sending them over. You know what? Just get an iPhone. Is this a new one? Yeah. Done. Boom. That's why they sold like 10 million in the first, 4 days or whatever. Is because if you take confusion out of the equation, you're going to sell more stuff. Period.
Right.
Period. I mean that is not a dig on any company or any process, but from the easiest point, from point A to point B that you can make, done, sold. I talk about this when I do my speaker series stuff.
Right.
It drives me nuts when they put barriers up on how people get paid. I'm like, look, how do you get money? You find the easiest way for them to pay you, and you get that done first. So that's my thing there. Up next is Android Wear. Hack Minecraft onto your wrist. So over on Android Police, I found this, and I thought it was kind of cool because I've been spending a lot of time with my Android Wear device, the Android LG G Watch. I don't have the LG G Round or R or whatever, but I don't really necessarily think I need that to experience what Android Wear has to offer. But apparently, you can play Minecraft on your wrist, so that's pretty hot right there. So if you want to go ahead and check the show notes later, go to thetechinformist.com where you can find this and all of our stories that we covered on the page, as well as listen to the show and listen to previous shows as well. So do you think that this move by LG, when they're going to be releasing a new Android Wear watch that is that has a cell radio in it, and that we've seen Samsung with their device that is basically like a phone on your wrist, do we see more of those coming out in the future? How popular do we think those are going to be?
I, I think we might see that more of the niche device. I mean, like we've mentioned before, smartwatches as a whole are kind of niche devices. It's still taking a little while for adaptation. People adopt them and really warm up to them.
Mm-hmm.
This whole wanting to make it like a separate device where you don't even really need a phone for it to work. That is going to be really interesting, and I'll have to just see how that works, because when I tried the Galaxy Gear, the original Samsung Galaxy Gear, I didn't really use the phone function that much to place calls, answer calls, because it's just like really feels weird.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I just really want it more for notifications, and I can do a quick reply if it's a text or something like that without having to pull my phone out of my pocket, etc., etc. So I'm still going to answer a call more often than not. I'm going to answer a call on my phone, not on my watch.
I wholeheartedly agree with that, and I also agree with the idea of that's a bad idea. That's just going to be a battery drain on the watch if it's always trying to keep signal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that's going to be a serious concern moving forward. You're up, sir, with your next story.
What else?
Come on, Kevin.
We talked about iOS. About the update last week. They've Apple quickly within a day pushed out 8.0.2, and that's been released, and all those issues previous have been resolved.
So, what were some of those issues?
I mentioned, it disabled the Touch ID, so people couldn't even, if that's how they chose to have their device locked, use the Touch ID to unlock your device with the fingerprint scanner per se. You couldn't unlock your device, and if that's not how you did lock your device, you went to make a call, you couldn't make a call because your cellular service was kind of disabled by the software.
That sucks.
Yeah.
That's awful. So do we know if that was on a particular carrier or?
Nah, I want to say it's pretty much just across the board. But then again, Apple just threw out the whole approximately 40,000 people were affected.
No big deal.
Which is a very small drop in the bucket, but
that's still 40,000 people. I mean, I'm not. If there was one thing I learned from the most recent developer conference I went to is that there's no two computers that are alike in the same universe. So that could be said for the phone. But when you're having large chunks of your user base like that, what it means is that means it's just another hurdle to overcome. As a user and people that are trying to get stuff done. But these things happen, and that's why we're here to inform you of what you need to do to fix some of those issues and know that you're either not alone or where you need to go for help and different stuff like that. The other thing I wanted to say that I don't say enough is if you are still rocking a Windows PC of some kind, you can bring your device into a Windows store and they will diagnose and fix your problem, usually for free, but if you do have to charge, it's usually not that much. And I just wanted to say that again because some people who experience those problems, we're not able to get to right away, so we feel comfortable and more than comfortable in handing some of those projects off to the store. So that's a pretty awesome deal. And recently I read that Microsoft's looking to drop a new flagship store in New York, so Mary Jo Foley, very first guest of the show.
Right.
It's
here
finally
comes your store.
Here comes your store. Now I don't know how close that actually is to you, but also a friend of the show, Gus Emery, and co-host of our Codecast show, is in New York right now. So Godspeed, sir. It's a different kind of lifestyle up there, man. It's a different kind of lifestyle. Let's just say that. The other thing I wanted to say was, in keeping with our Android theme for today, Microsoft's popular OneNote app, which if you're not using it, I have no idea why, because you should be, is available on Android Wear. Now, this story is over at blogs.office.com. Link will be in the show notes as well. But essentially, you can do a voice-to-text note or a audio note using OneNote as the back-end service for that on Android Wear. Now, why this is important? Well, I'm used to taking notes in OneNote often for everything. It's my Evernote, if you will. And this ability is pretty sweet when you think about how it's coupled with Microsoft services. So I was able to sneak in Microsoft into an Android story. So how do you like that, Kevin?
Yeah, it's pretty good. Well done.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, sir.
Well done.
I often live for your unenthusiastic praise. So the other thing was you could also use that on your phone. So now OneNote has the ability for Android devices such as Samsung and the like with the digitizer, which is the pen. You can handwrite notes in there into OneNote as well. So I know that that's another pretty cool and not necessarily niche, but another cool aspect to a crowd who already does a lot of note-taking. So pardon the pun, but hey, that's what they call it, OneNote and the Galaxy Note, if you will. So that was pretty cool as well, and it's becoming a fight overall in the cell phone space for between Apple and Samsung right now. And I think the Samsung Galaxy Note, the most recent one, is a definite contender against the iPhone 6 Plus. What would you say to that, Kevin?
Yeah, I think it is. Really, just yeah, I love OneNote. I've pretty much swapped over using the majority of Microsoft services now. You know, we do a lot of our show notes with Microsoft Word. We use a lot of our stuff with Excel, and we really use OneNote a lot now.
A lot. A lot. That's how me and Kevin control our lives and the world. I mean,
Right.
our lives. No, just kidding. So the other thing that I just wanted to say before we were done was our application picks. And I'm going to go first, which is usually out of character, but I'm really
Very out of
feeling it.
character.
I'm really feeling this episode today. I think because we got our groove back. Stella got a groove back. If you don't know that reference, you're not old enough yet, and don't worry, you will after you're forced to watch that movie. JJ, my pick is JJ is me. Sorry, I don't know. I was literally just reading it off the paper. My
Sound
pick
like Bob
is
Dole.
free Office Lens. So Office Lens app for Windows Phone 8. If you haven't already downloaded this, go download this application. Now, Windows Phone is not very popular, but it is popular to me, and it is popular with my peeps, with my peeps that hit me up. Wow, that was terrible. Anyways, that hit me up on the social media space. What I'd like for all of you to do, if you're not already using this, is Office Lens, and what it does is, if you're inside the camera application, there is an option for lenses, and what you can do is you can actually change the Lens app as like an add-on or extension to like a browser or something like that, and it allows you to, when you take a picture of, say, a whiteboard, you can turn that whiteboard picture into a Word doc, a OneNote entry, or you can do, you know what, you can just do a lot of stuff, a PowerPoint, all this other stuff. But what's really cool is, say you're standing at an angle, right? Because not all of us can do, a straight-on shot of a whiteboard, especially if you're lazy and sitting down. You're like, nah, I don't want to get up. You don't have to. If you take the picture of the whiteboard from an angle, it will auto-crop the picture of the whiteboard that you've written on by hand, mind you, and it'll make it flat. It'll make it as if you were doing a straight-on shot of the whiteboard, and you can put it in whatever format you want. So that's my tip. It's free. Go download it now. It's ever loving amazing. Now, if there was an Android version of that I missed, somebody let me know, because I couldn't find it as I was looking for it on the store. Kevin, you're up with your application.
That would be awesome if they brought it to iOS and Android devices.
Why don't they? They're software.
It's really a cool service. But
then
again,
it is.
Maybe that's one way Microsoft wants to differentiate themselves from the competition, by saying, hey, well, look, you can have your OneNote and all that on all these other devices, but if you want the full experience, you got to go.
I don't know. I feel like I think that they would, if they could. My thought is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, they would have to develop their own camera app, because I don't think Android allows you to throw in quote-unquote lenses into Android. Tell me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, you might be right. So it could just be an issue with Android and iOS.
Interesting. You're up, Kevin.
So we'll move into my application pick, and it's something that, I don't really have a whole lot of free time, and lately when I do find myself with free time, I'm firing this app up. Now, I'm a big Spider-Man fan, have been since I was little, favorite superhero, seeing the original Spider-Man trilogy come out on, in the theaters was just like a dream come true. My wife always gives me a little bit of a flack for actually almost tearing up a little bit during one of the movies, just because it was like, she's like,
Which one?
Like, for me, it was 3, because I'm a big Venom fan, just from the comics and stuff. Just being able to see, you got Spider-Man here, you got Venom here, and all that stuff. I was like, this is just awesome. She looks over, she's like, "Are you
seriously crying right now?
Is your eyes watering?" I'm like, "Yeah," because this is like, it's like geek heaven right here. Just something. As a child growing up, playing with Transformers and being able to see all this stuff now on the big screen, it's like, this is It's like reliving my childhood again. It's like, these things have great memories for me.
Well, I almost cried during Transformers, but for a completely different reason.
No,
It was awful.
my app pick is the new Spider-Man Unlimited. Now,
Optimus, what are you doing, Optimus?
Fighting. Yeah.
So we'll tell people about that later.
So these running games, people are familiar with, Temple Run, or I can't even remember if that's even the name of it now. But
Temple Run. Let's see, what is the other one?
There's always these dash games where you try to see how far you can go and collect all the little tokens or coins or whatever the game is in particular. But Spider-Man Unlimited is a free download for Windows Phone, iOS, and Android. But of course, with in-app purchases, and you're just, you're battling the Sinister Six.
It's early. We don't normally do it this early in the morning.
Right. But it's really fun.
Do the show, not do it. God, yeah. Come on, guys.
So you simply, swipe left to move left, swipe right to move right, swipe up to jump, swipe down to kind of like slide tackle enemies and stuff. And it's really a very fun game. It's really well done. You can level up your different Spider-Men. You can call in other Spider-Men. When you accumulate 2,500 vials, you can quote unquote buy new ones, or you can of course pay real money to buy this IO8 or whatever it's called. ISO 8, that's what it is, not iOS 8.
Boy, the train is running. Mayday!
Yes, Mayday! But no, it's really fun. I definitely suggest everybody, if you're fans of Spider-Man or anything like that, grab it. You'll definitely enjoy
it. Yes, I will. And I will, just because you were that enthusiastic about it, I'll give it a try.
Well, obviously you're a Spider-Man fan. I can see a Spider-Man comic right here.
I'm not. I do not. No, who am I kidding?
So my Spider-Man comic in the background. So.
Well, my favorite scene. Oh, okay. So I thought that the very first Spider-Man was the best, and the reason for that being is I thought that at the time it came out, it was just solid. I mean. Just solid. The scene where Uncle dies and all that kind of thing, and just a really well done. But my favorite part was if you check out any of Spider-Man's comic books, man, he gets jacked up. I mean, the dude just gets beat to all get out. He's always getting his butt whooped, and when Peter Parker throws out the crossweb like this here and pulls down the bricks on top of Green Goblin, I was like, hot! Because the dude's face is it's all battle. He's got the battle scene, thing going on. He's like, yes, coming down on you.
It was beautiful.
That was hot. I was solid, and then he's got the Spidey sense, and the blade comes in, he does the backflip, and then right into the dude. I was like, tight! That was awesome!
The first and second ones were really well done. The third one, not as much, but...
Yeah. I didn't even watch that one legally.
I think Spider-Man 2 was my favorite of those three.
I want to say that I was out of the country when one of those came out.
It's very possible.
Yeah, so I was watching a weird version of it, but I don't know. It was like blah, blah. But I do think that the guy that played Brock, I forget his name.
I believe.
Yeah. He was a good serial killer and Predator, but I think we needed a little bit stronger of a Venom character, just a little bit. But he did a pretty good job.
Yeah. Well, it was just too small of a role. I mean, if you're going to do Venom, you've got to make an entire movie where it's just he's the only
bad guy. Yeah, he's the only bad guy. He can't be in a mix with. Just because what's his name? Oh gosh, I can't remember his name. But who's not the Green Goblin? The Green Goblin's kid.
Oh, Harry Osborn.
Yeah, no, but who plays him?
James Franco.
James Franco. Thank you, God. I was gonna say Flacco, but I've been watching too much football. So he should have never, ever. No, don't do that. Bad. Don't make a character just because you had a character in a previous movie. You should never do that, ever. So, anyways, let's get back to the point of the show here, which I'm losing my ability to focus. If you want to comment or contribute to any story that we cover on this show, email us at contact@thetechinformist.com. Again, contact@thetechinformist.com. Follow the show on Twitter, social media, all of that stuff. Follow us because we're awesome, and frankly, you should be following us anyways. At TechInformist on Twitter, and just type in the TechInformist.com to a search engine and go there and check us out.
Right. You find every other social media.
Thank you again to Phil Nickinson, arguably mine and Kevin's personal. You know, we've been listening to the guy for feels like for the last forever, the couple of years, right? I mean, for me, how about you?
Oh yeah, I've listened to the Android Central podcast for at least 3 years now. I mean, I remember episode 100. I mean, that's obviously 2 years ago.
I do too. Yeah.
And even prior to that.
I do too. So we can't thank you enough. Again, you can follow him. Where can people follow him, Kevin?
At Phil Nickinson. He's on Twitter. Facebook is. Yeah, I'm not sure about Facebook, but I'm sure he's on Facebook. But Google Plus is where he primarily does a lot of his interaction. So that's plus Phil Nickinson. And obviously on Twitter, at Phil Nickinson.
Perfect. Well, everyone, thank you to our fans. We love and appreciate your support of the show. And thank you again to Phil. And so from our entire crew, consider yourself informed. We're out.